acknowledge everyone who are here with us today, advocating for the education sector. Your mere presence is highly regarded and appreciated as we renew our commitment to prioritize education investments for the Filipino learners. I would like to start by saying thank you. We acknowledge the efforts of EDCOM 2 commissioners in pushing for transformative, concrete, and targeted reforms to address the learning crisis and to further improve the country's education system. We also thank you for hosting this meeting, Senator Gatchalian. Likewise, we would also like to express our gratitude for the laudable efforts of the Advisory Council members in providing expert assistance and sage advice in making the Philippines globally competitive, both in education and labor markets. We also recognize the tremendous amount of work devoted by the EDCOM Secretariat to ensure that necessary arrangements are successfully undertaken to organize every meeting. On behalf of the Department of Education, along with our teaching and non-teaching personnel, nationwide, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. We have waited for EDCOM 2 for a long time. We welcome suggestions coming from the commissioners and the Advisory Council. If there are ways by which we can collaborate and support one another, we would be glad to hear them, for we believe that the gargantuan task of addressing the woes of the education sector will not happen overnight, nor can it be achieved by DepEd alone. As the old adage puts it, it takes a village to educate a child. In order to ensure quality, accessible, relevant, liberating, and resilient education for our learners, we need to strengthen and sustain our collective efforts as a nation. We still have a long way to go. We need to be resilient. We need to do more. With this philosophy in mind, the Department of Education under the current administration launched the Matatag Agenda in the furtherance of its mandate and guided by the renewed hope under the leadership of His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Under the Matatag Agenda, we pledge to make the curriculum relevant to produce competent, job-ready, active, and responsible citizens, take steps to accelerate delivery of basic education facilities and services, take good care of our learners by promoting learner well-being, inclusive education, and a positive learning environment, and give support to our teachers to teach better. Towards this end, we come here filled with enthusiasm to sit and work with you. As this meeting commences, it is of utmost importance that we are all guided by a common understanding of a systematic and inclusive engagement among stakeholders, which is a critical component in the fulfillment of our goals and targets. Ang lahat para sa Diyos, sa bayan, at sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino. Shukran.
Since day one of this administration, we have seen the efforts of the DepEd in rallying transformative reforms in our basic education sector. Kaya naman isang malaking pagpupugay po sa inyong lahat. The first EDCOM in 1990 was established to address the country's education woes. It undertook one of the most extensive public consultation in the history of the Philippine governance. The findings of EDCOM 1 aim to answer the need to make our education sector more efficient, equitable, and responsive. One of the fruits of this reform was the trifocalization of the Philippine education system, which led to the creation of 3 government agencies, namely the Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education and Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. Over the years, DepEd has made significant progress in responding to the needs of our country's basic education sector. One of these is the implementation of the flagship K-12 basic education curriculum. The DepEd has also provided support for the training of teachers and the construction and rehabilitation of school buildings. However, we cannot ignore the fact that there remain challenges that need to be addressed. Mayroon tayong mga hamon na kinakailangan bigyan ng pansin. Foremost among these challenges is the crisis hounding the quality of education. Based on the latest World Bank studies, the Philippines' learning poverty has worsened and now stands at 90.9%. This means that 9 out of 10 Filipino children aged 10 cannot read and understand a simple story. In 2018, the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, results showed that Filipino learners are lagging behind their peers abroad and failing to master basic competencies. Out of these 79 countries that participated in PISA, the Philippines ranked lowest in reading and second to the lowest in mathematics and science. Our Filipino learners deserve better than this. Alam po nating lahat na higit pa rito ang kakayahan ng mga kabataang Pilipino, lalo na kung may mahusay na polisiya na makakapaggabay sa kanila. May magagawa tayo upang matugunan ang mga hamong ito. During the 18th Congress, Republic Act 11899 or the EDCOM 2 Act was passed. This is the reason why we are all gathered here today. EDCOM 2 will shape our legacy. We aim to create concrete, targeted, and transformative reforms in the sector with the goal of making the Philippines globally competitive. By working together, we can align EDCOM 2's priority areas with DepEd's matatag agenda, establish mechanisms for EDCOM 2 to collaborate closely with DepEd, and above all, utilize a whole-of-government approach in addressing our common challenges in basic education. Through EDCOM 2, we look forward to working with DepEd in transforming the Philippine basic education system. DepEd and EDCOM 2 can leverage their respective strengths and expertise to improve our country's quality of education. Together, we can fulfill our vision of providing quality education for every Filipino learner. Katulad ng sinabi ng ating Vice Presidente at kalihim Sara Duterte sa paglalahad niya ng kanyang Basic Education Report 2030. Sa gitna ng hamon sa edukasyon, tayo po ay magiging matatag. Tunay na tayo ay magiging matatag sa pagharap sa anumang hamon na darating sa sektor ng edukasyon. We owe it to the next generation of leaders and innovators to provide them with the best education possible. Sila ang pag-asa ng ating bayan na sa ating mga kamay ang susi tungo sa pag-unlad ng kanilang kinabukasan. The Second Congressional Commission on Education, Republic Act No. 11899, was passed into law in July of 2022, creating EDCOM 2 with the mandate of conducting a comprehensive national assessment and evaluation of the performance of the Philippine education sector for the purpose of recommending transformative, concrete, and targeted reforms in the sector with the end in view of making the Philippines globally competitive in both education and labor markets in the next 3 years from 2023 to 2025. Improving learning outcomes will require, number 1, education and nutrition interventions. Number 2, the availability of other support to learners in school and outside of school. Active participation of both national and local governments. And number 4, urgent interventions as well as longer-term reforms. And we have identified 28 priority areas that I will discuss briefly later on. So let me go into the details of the priority areas. And we will cover, for this presentation, we will cover early childhood and development, basic education, teacher education, governance, and finance. And just as an opening statement, there's a close alignment within EDCOM 2 priorities with the DepEd BER, Basic Education Report, that was given by our Vice President during her report, precisely because we share the same goal. So, as context, for early childhood and development, 1 in every 3 Filipino children are chronically malnourished. Participation in pre-kindergarten program is also very low across all income groups. And the priority areas that we identified is in nutrition and feeding, supply side factors, meaning constructing daycare centers, demand side factors, meaning how do we encourage our parents to see value in early childhood, and governance and financing of ECCD. I know that the Vice President knows this very well, being a former local chief executive, that for early childhood is a hybrid setup, wherein the ECCD Council comes up with policy, but the implementation is with the local government units. In fact, the local government units are the ones financing, hiring, and launching their own program among the early childhood daycare centers of our country. So this is a setup that we need to look at, because there's obviously a gap within policy and implementation on the ground. So we had to look at governance and financing of ECCD as a very important factor in terms of its success. For basic education, just to give context, while we are at par with rich countries in terms of attendance, we are way below our potential. There is a learning gap of 5.5 years, meaning for a learner who is undergoing 12 years of basic education, only 6.5 years is being learned by that same learner. Only 2/3 of students in rural schools had one textbook per student. An average Filipino student spent more time in school but were less productive than their counterparts in comparator countries. Additional classrooms are needed, given that school buildings in certain remote areas do not meet quality and safety standards. Enrollment is increasing and existing classrooms deteriorate due to wear and tear of calamities. And the commissioners, as well as our advisory council, identified priority areas in basic education. I won't go into the issues because these are details of the priority areas, but we have identified learning resources as a priority area that we should look at. Measurement of learning outcomes. As we all know, we have the National Achievement Test, but how do we use the National Achievement Test? How do we cull the data in order to come up with reforms is another issue that we have to look at. Curriculum and instruction is also another issue, and we have to look at the medium and language of instruction, and this is where Congressman Roman is very passionate about. We also have to look at the decongestion, and also even reviewing the spiral method in the spiral curriculum method in the curriculum and instruction area. We also have to look at learning loss in the context of the pandemic. School infrastructure is another priority area. Alternative learning system. We have a law that we enacted a few years back, and this law aims to increase access to our constituents in terms of alternative learning system. We also have to look at the home and school environment, making our school environment safe, considering that bullying and other mental health issues have cropped up in various discussions. Just to give information, the one with the heart crossing is actually areas that are aligned with the basic education report. So there are priority areas that the commissioners identified which are also aligned with the basic education report. In terms of teacher education and development, just to give context, teaching profession has among the lowest passing rates compared to other board examinations. Teacher performance on content knowledge and assessment was poor. And also, the priority areas that we will be looking at: alignment of CHED, PRC, DepEd to include the Teacher Education Council on teacher education and development. Dr. Gina is very well versed with this. In fact, she was instrumental in passing the reforms in the Teacher Education Council. We'll be looking at the pre-service education, also the in-service training and development. In terms of governance and finance, ensuring seamless and integrated delivery of education as one of the priority areas. Complementarity between public and private education. We want to look at also how we can maximize and utilize the nimbleness of our private education and also exhaust their excess capacity when it comes to infrastructure. We will be looking at integrated performance management and accountability system, efficiency and equity in financing, resource mobilization and delivery of education. We will also look at decentralization, quality of education, governance, and participatory governance. We also believe that the local government units play a very important role in delivering basic education. There's a underutilized body, which is the local school board, that we have not tapped in terms of exerting accountability at the local level. Just to give the body an idea, some of the learnings from EDCOM 1, many of the problems as well as our aspirations are not new, requiring us to come up with more creative and effective solutions. Many challenges were not contained within the education sector, requiring us to consider its interdependence with other policies and processes of NEDA, DBM, CSC, GOA, etc. I remember that one of the issues within the DepEd bureaucracy, and I'm sure Yusek Ann knows about this, is the hiring of teachers and hiring personnel. But we also found out that just in CSC alone, the delay creates a lot of complication, and that's beyond DepEd's reach in terms of getting approvals from the Civil Service Commission. So we should also look at those bottlenecks in order to make sure that DepEd operates at the optimum. We need not wait for 3 years before beginning to work together on reforms. So some of the things that we saw that are present during as early as 1925, that we have overworked and overburdened teachers. In a Monroe survey presented before, they stated that our teachers were already overworked. And until now, after 85 years, it's still the same issue. And so we have to look at that and why, and go deeper on why this problem persists despite many reforms that we implemented in the past. 98 years. I'm sorry for the 10 years in advocacy. And in the EDCOM 1, a lot of the findings there are still present at this time. And in fact, EDCOM 1 was the brainchild of no less than the father of Senator Sani Angara, who spearheaded that commission at that time. But many of the issues before are still present at this time. Resources still lack. Many of our areas are still underserved. Of course, the alternative learning system needs to be improved. So a lot of these problems are present in the past. That means that we need to be more creative and more innovative in looking for solutions, because the problems also evolve as we go in time. So the education and legislative branches of government should work together. This is the most important message towards mutual goals. We look forward to working closely with DepEd in the next 3 years of EDCOM 2. So with that, thank you very much, and we will leave a copy of this presentation to the Department of Education. And as I mentioned before, a lot of the details will be trashed out as our working groups will be created. And I mentioned to the good Vice President earlier that one of the most important activities that we will be requesting from DepEd is data. A lot of these recommendations will be based on research, based on evidence, and definitely there's only one agency that is the repository of data, which is DepEd, and we will be requesting from the good secretary access to those information. And with that, we will come up with recommendations that we will share with the Department of Education and its other attached agencies. So thank you very much.
Our presentation is focused on 4 areas: basic education, teacher education and development, and then a little on textbook education because we have senior high school, and then governance and finance. So the first one is on basic education. So I'll give you directions and updates on learning resources. So as you know, the Vice President created the procurement strand to address so many issues on distribution of learning resources to teachers and to our learners. Currently, we're working towards the adoption of a new textbook and teacher manual procurement policy. This is bundling the procurement of development, printing, and delivery. Currently and in the past, development, printing, and delivery go to different providers. Okay, so sometimes books are printed, but they are not delivered because we need to wait for the delivery. So we're working on bundling the procurement for development, printing, and delivery, and I think in this quarter we'll be able to release the policy. We work with the National Book Development Board so that private publishers could develop, produce, and distribute textbooks as mandated by RA 8407. We also are set to introduce electronic textbooks for certain core subjects in senior high school. As committed by our Vice President in the Basic Education Report, we're providing selected schools, for now, e-classroom packages for teaching and learning. And we're working on getting e-library subscription so that our students could have access to materials anytime and anywhere they would need them. In the second quarter of this year, we will launch our National Education Portal with LR Portal for Kids. What we want to happen is for kids to have access to stories, to modules, to worksheets, even during suspensions of classes. Okay, so learning continues at home. This is a big task. So we'll keep building the National Education Portal, curating its content until we're able to address our learner needs. We will provide assessment-assisted mechanisms. For now, DepEd has Braille, but we're still working on audio-assisted technology and large print test materials to students with disabilities. In terms of the measurement of learning outcomes, these were the commitments made during the Basic Education Report: be transparent about our test scores and make our test data available, share sample test items with schools and teachers, digitize our national assessments. To do this, we're going to conduct stakeholders forum in the third quarter of this year to present assessment results and guidelines related to data sharing. So data analysts, researchers that wish to access our data and help us look at our data to inform our practices in the Department of Education, particularly in terms of teaching and learning, will give them access to data following our guidelines. We also are set to develop a roadmap to strengthen the Bureau of Education Assessment. So we're looking at providing more modern softwares for analysis, and we need more people that specialize in various models, statistical models, so that our analyses are also at par with international assessment analysis. In curriculum and instruction, these are the commitments made during the Basic Education Report. We will improve English proficiency of our learners while recognizing linguistic diversity. We will review the implementation of the mother tongue-based multilingual education. We will revise the K-12 curriculum. We will reduce the number of learning areas in K-3 to focus on foundational skills. We will revitalize our national programs on science, technology, mathematics, and reading, intensify values formation in adherence to RA 11476, embed the culture of peace in the curriculum. These are what we're doing currently. We're analyzing the data on learners' languages. We're having ongoing consultation with experts and stakeholders. What we can share at this point is that we are envisioning a very flexible language policy. Okay? It will follow the basic principle that learners learn best in the language that they know, but it's going to be a flexible language policy, giving autonomy to schools and to teachers to decide on the language to use in their classrooms, because they know best what languages or what language learners use in the classroom. We are set to release the final draft of our K-10 curriculum guides for interested stakeholders so that we get feedback from them. So in the next 3 weeks, we're releasing all K-10 curriculum guides across all learning areas, which the Department of Education has never done in the past. So we want the public, the academe, organizations to look at our curriculum guides and give us feedback before we finalize them. We don't want a DepEd curriculum. We want a Philippine curriculum, okay, that the public trusts. We will launch the K-10 curriculum this year. We will launch a recalibrated national learning recovery program, which utilizes a whole-of-nation approach. There's going to be the DepEd side of it, but there's going to be the industry stakeholder side of it. And to address learning loss, we're launching a national learning camp, which is two-pronged. One is to improve learning outcomes, and two, to develop the capacity of our teachers. Because as you know, we really can't make a dent in improving learning outcomes unless we help our teachers. So the learning camp will address two things. Address learning outcomes, help develop the capacity of our teachers. You've asked for an inventory of facilities. This is by the way, the Vice President created the School Infrastructure and Facilities Strand to address long-standing issues on educational facilities and infrastructure. So these are our numbers. We have 59,890 schools, 47,678 public, and then 12,212 private schools. We have 327,851 buildings, purely elementary school, 227,330, purely junior high school, 7,124, purely senior high school, 783, junior high school with senior high school, 74,874, K-10, 10,500, K-12, 7,240. Total number of rooms, 799,200. So we have 656,968 instructional rooms, and then we have non-instructional rooms, 656,968,000. So these are our strategies to address the gaps. We're addressing the current requirements for facilities by 2030, and that's a commitment of USEC evidencing. Okay. We will mobilize resources and partnerships for the school building program. We will build more resilient schools and classrooms. For 2023, our target is constructing 5,081 new classrooms. But we also need to be very innovative because we cannot provide all the classrooms and all the schools that our students need. So to decongest our classrooms and address teacher shortage, DepEd will adopt a two-pronged approach for learning delivery. One is traditional delivery, that is face-to-face, and one is technology-assisted delivery. That means some of our students can stay at home or in other areas while they learn. And we're experimenting on this in the higher grade levels. For our alternative learning system, we grant special hardship allowance to our ALS teachers. For financial year 2023, DepEd has allocated 70 Teacher 1 items for ALS. We're set to conduct a tracer study of ALS learners to determine the impact of the alternative learning system and then to find out where our ALS graduates go and what has happened to them after ALS education. We've allocated 52 million this 2023 for the construction of 4 pilot ALS school-based learning centers. Because we are launching a new K-10 curriculum, we are also doing an ongoing contextualization of the ALS curriculum. But even the current program of ALS teaches life skills such as personal development, interpersonal communication, leadership, teamwork, work habits, safety and health at work, rights and responsibilities of workers and employers, and financial fitness, among others. For home and school environment, our Bureau of Learner Services under operations is working to strengthen and institutionalize the reintegration program for adolescent mothers, children at risk, and children in conflict with the law. We've established the Learners' Rights and Protection Office. We've received complaints on abuse, bullying, and we've addressed them. We continue with the establishment of inclusive learning resource centers. We also work with DBM to obtain higher salary grades for guidance counselors and propose the creation of additional items that will focus on providing learner support services. But another issue here is that we don't have many graduates of guidance counseling. Not many students want to pursue guidance counseling. So this is something that the Teacher Education Council and can do later on to make sure that there is supply to address the demand of the Department of Education. We're doing ongoing consultations with professional organizations to launch our National Mental Health Program, and we will conduct nationwide training for guidance counselors this October. In terms of teacher education and development, Congressman Romulo, Congressman Marco, and Senator Win, I'm sure, are very interested in what's happening to this one. The IRR has been drafted, so there's an ongoing review by legal office of the IRR. So hopefully, in this quarter, we'll be able to release the IRR. Okay, and then the Teacher Education Council can start working as mandated by the law. In terms of training and development, we continue to provide professional development programs, including graduate degree scholarship programs to our DepEd teachers. We have 2,825 teachers and school leaders taking up MA and PhD degrees in PNU. We have 11,000 teachers doing short courses with Simyo Inotech, and we have 22 teacher scholars in UP. Senator Win mentioned about the Monroe report earlier about the burden the teachers bear because so much administrative task is given to them. There's an ongoing deployment of 5,000 administrative officers in schools so that principals don't ask teachers to do the jobs of clerks, but the jobs are done by administrative officers. But we recognize that 5,000 is still short of the 58,000 schools that we have in the country. So we continue to request for items from DBM. For 2023, we're requesting 3,500 AO2 and 1,500 project development 1 officers. I'll just go back to the second box. Career progression policy was an EO signed by former President Duterte. Our draft IRR is already done. On the part of DepEd, we have already routed the draft IRR to CSC, PRC, DBM for comments. So we're also looking at having the career progression policy implemented soon when the IRR is signed. For FY 2023, 9,650 teacher items have been created. The next slide, NAYAP is currently strengthening its mechanisms, even its organizational structure actually, following RA 11713 and the NAYAP transformation design. They're working on finalizing some professional development policies, PD program and delivery guidelines in the conduct of trainings for teachers, learning action cells, regular and special professional development programs. And they're working on developing omnibus guidelines on scholarships. For technical vocational education, because we have senior high school, just to let you know that we're doing something on this. As committed in the basic education report, we engage with CHED and TESTA and various industry partners to address the issue of skills mismatch in our senior high school program. Our grades 11 to 12 or senior high school curriculum is currently under review. Our first roundtable discussion with partners, including PBED, was conducted yesterday. Governance and finance. For this area, we've adopted the Basic Education Development Plan 2030 to serve as a roadmap for the basic education sector. We expect the Teacher Education Council to strengthen coordination among education agencies in terms of teacher education. And the School Governance Council was created by virtue of DO 26 series of 2022. And then here, we hope that parents, students, alumni would be able to work together for shared governance and shared accountability. We chair the Philippine Qualifications Framework National Coordinating Agency, so it's also an opportunity for us to coordinate with other agencies in terms of Philippine Qualifications Framework. And in the area of literacy, we chair the Literacy Coordinating Council, and we work with government agencies and other stakeholders in this council. Complementarity between public and private education. To strengthen the complementarity, we're working on a seamless implementation of the Government Assistance and Subsidies Program of the DepEd with the creation of the Government Assistance and Subsidies Office, which is under the finance strand. The operations strand is working on revising the manual of regulation for private schools, and private schools are engaged in this process. We work closely with Congress in pushing for the expansion of GASPE coverage to include kindergarten and elementary learners, and our legal and legislative affairs strand is doing this on DepEd's behalf. Integrated performance management and accountability system. So currently, our program expenditure classification is the current government mechanism to link performance with budget. Our performance-based bonus also links performance with benefits. So we follow the Civil Service Commission System Performance Management. Tama ba yun? RPMS na po kasi sa DepEd, Results-Based Performance Management System. As a Civil Service Strategic Performance Management System, SPMS. We're also in the process of operationalizing the basic education monitoring and evaluation framework. In terms of efficiency and equity in financing, resource mobilization, and delivery of education, we launched the DepEd Partnership Assistance Portal in March, which helps in providing equitable distribution of resources donated by education partners. So we now have a DPAP. We are implementing public finance reform roadmap, which streamlines financial processes to support the efficient implementation of DepEd's programs, activities, and projects. We are decentralizing our finance and procurement transactions to regional offices, schools division offices, and implementing schools to ensure immediate response and actions to deliver desirable learning outcomes and resources. And these are all happening po in the Department of Education. Okay? That might be, we work with legislators through the Literacy Coordinating Council to eradicate illiteracy at the city, municipal, and barangay levels through relevant policy issuances and community literacy program interventions. And ENET joins us in this council. We engage our education stakeholders through the EDUC Forum.